So I'll go ahead and bring everybody in. Here we go. Let's pop them in. Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello, all. And if everyone can just go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone. I know Marcus said he's running about 5 minutes late. Mark, I saw your comment about the childcare issue. The panel should be roughly about an hour. But if everyone could go ahead and introduce themselves, let's start with Jamal.
Jamal Thomas. I run the Jamal Thomas Morning Show on YouTube by the name Jamal Thomas. Check me out.
All right, Chris.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Chris, I'm the co-host of the Political Matrix. We got a show with my co-host Marcus. Right now he should be here, but he's on his way. So that's what we do Saturday nights. What's up, fellas?
Awesome. Dion.
Hey, family, how you doing? I'm District Leader Dion Powell of the 78th Assembly District here in the Bronx, New York. I'm a strategist, consultant, and that's about it.
All right. Cool. And Mark.
Peace, everybody. I'm Mark Lamont Hill, host of Night School right here on YouTube.
Awesome. Okay, so obviously during the 2024 presidential election, there has been a lot of finger pointing towards Black men for not supporting Kamala Harris or not supporting her in the way that people supported Barack Obama. In fact, I want to start with this reminder here, just to remind everybody what Barack Obama said. This was before the election results. Just a little reminder.
Communities is that we had not yet seen the same kinds of energy and turnout in all quarters of our neighborhoods and communities as we saw when I was running. Now, I also want to say that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers.
More pronounced with the brothers. So, of course, I think a lot of us know that Barack Obama, that speech that he gave there was not well received, and he did receive a lot of criticism for that. So I want to start with you, Mark. The comment that Barack Obama made there that Kamala Harris was not receiving the same amount of support from Black male voters when compared to Barack Obama. Why do you think that is? If Barack Obama was in front of you today, what would your response be?
There'd be a couple of things. One, that train is never late. I mean, one thing Barack Obama going to do is reprimand Black people and reprimand Black men in particular. That's his jam. So I'm not surprised by it. I think that there are people who, and this is where he has to be accountable. There are people who absolutely voted for Barack Obama and were not voting for Kamala Harris, even though they are basically the same neoliberal candidate. Now, there's a little bit of that's patriarchy. Some of that is anti-Black woman stuff. But there's also a big chunk of it that people were disappointed by the Obama candidacy and say, we ain't going to do that again. We tried voting for the Black guy thinking that was going to change our reality. But he was the same warmonger. He was the same neoliberal candidate. He was the same, person that didn't do anything to stop police terrorism. He's the same one that didn't have a reparations agenda. So why would we do it again? So I think I would rather have him have spoken to our issues than pathologizing us further. Even though there is a legitimate argument that there's some patriarchy and sexism there, I think there's more fundamental issues that he should have dealt with too.
Okay, Chris, how do you feel about that statement that Barack Obama made?
It's just power. To me, it's the response of power whenever you see some of your flock going wayward, right? It's like, how dare you even think about leaving, but you're going to be loud about it. On top of that, we can't allow that. So then now I have to come in with I have to chastise you in such a way that I would never talk to any other group like this but you guys. It's almost like a father to his son almost when you see your son doing something that you don't approve of. So it's very negative energy though, because it's not even a discussion as to, Yo, Jamal, Dion, Mark, Sabby, why do you feel this way? Talk to me. It's not even talk to me. It's what the hell are you doing? I thought we already had this conversation. I told you what not to do. And now I'm here to put you back in line. And unfortunately for us, a lot of us saw that and was like, nah, we're not playing that. Nah, not today. You could take that to uncle, auntie, grandma, you know, pops, moms, maybe, you know, that certain age bracket that still holds him and his wife and the Democratic Party in high regard. But the more of us who are tapped into the internet, if you will, in such a way, we view things a little bit differently, and that is not going to work. In fact, now there's major pushback. So I'll leave it there.
Jamal, do you think that comment from Barack Obama helped or hurt Kamala Harris's campaign? And also, how did you feel about when Kamala Harris was questioned about this by Roland Martin? I noticed that she was hesitant to give any type of criticism towards Barack Obama's comments. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, she's not going to criticize Obama. Yeah, that comment, clearly it was a backlash to the comment. It didn't help her to any means at all. A few points. So I think Martha's right. It shows, you know, for all intents and purposes, Obama and Kamala Harris are very similar in regards to substance. But it shows that Obama was a political phenomenon. I mean, the fact that they were a very similar substance, that Obama was able to kind of still pull all of these elements as if he was something unique and something different. Well, he was unique and different. He was black, but beyond that point, he was a Democrat. That he had political skill and political dexterity that Kamala Harris didn't have. There may be some of that. There might have been a certain amount of misogyny, but all things being equal, I think he was just a political talent that she just didn't fundamentally have. I mean, just even on oration alone, I mean, Kamala Harris couldn't give this kind of sitting, giving an interview and having an interview come out good. Most of those interviews turn out bad, where Obama would give a speech and, you know, people would weep at the speech. On the other front, a Democrat is never really going to acknowledge their flaws. I mean, they may do it a little bit now, but if you think about it, any of the Democrats that you really talk to, or the ones that I've talked to, don't even understand why she lost. I mean, they would say, well, people are racist, they're sexist, they're bigoted, blacks weren't sufficiently loyal, Hispanic men weren't, you know, this or that. Meaning, even now, if you look at a Whoopi Goldberg or Joe Behar or anybody on The View, it's not like they recognize their flaws and how they lost from their point of view, like Joy Amreza. She was flawless. She ran a flawless campaign. Even Queen Latifah backed her. And, you know, Latifah doesn't back anybody. Like, this is the way they were talking about it after she lost. And so I don't think you're going to get this kind of come to Jesus moment that we would want. And during an election campaign, Obama, under no circumstances, I mean, they're not acknowledging their failures now, meaning they're not having an autopsy now, let alone having it before the election. No, it was damaging to her campaign, just put it mildly.
Dion, how do you feel about that statement that Barack Obama made? To me, it almost kind of came across as though the black male vote is owed, that it's owed to the Democratic Party.
Again, Sabby, excuse the background. New York is called the Radiator. All right, this is going from the audacity of hope to the audacity of hype. He has such audacity to be such a coach to us, and then again reprimand us and try to amp us up again. But that black girl magic this time isn't going to work. Information is too instantaneously, and we've all found each other, and we all have a concept of history under his administration of results, under Trump's administration of results. Now the sexism and all that kind of stuff. Black men sometimes gravitate to a man's man or a man in general with the aura, and that also shows the comparison of Obama's audacity of manhood and Trump's audacity of manhood. And by comparison, when it comes to leadership, black men are gravitating more so to Trump than Obama. Then Kamala Harris, being a woman, is one thing, but then what her leadership skills have shown compared to Trump's is very much lacking more so. So that's what I see that as. A coach that has failed us and can't aspire anymore, and you know, it's off to the pastures.
Well, you mentioned manhood, and I'm glad you brought that up because I do want to show you guys something with the exit polls. And I know sometimes people say, well, exit polls aren't 100%, but there is a picture that is painted here that I do think that we should just look at for just a second. for the 2024 presidential election exit polls, if we look at sex by race, this was a big red flag, I think, or should have been a red flag for the Democratic Party. They received 77% of the Black male vote. Donald Trump received 21% of the Black male vote. And I compared this to 2016. He did not receive that much in 2016. Also, the other thing that I noticed as well, when we're talking about these exit polls, it does appear also that even Hillary Clinton performed better with Black male voters than Kamala Harris did. So I know every now and then people bring up the misogyny issue, and we bring in Marcus in here. People are bringing up the misogyny issue. I get it. But that doesn't explain why more Black men voted for Hillary Clinton than for Kamala Harris. So the point that you mentioned there, Dion, about this manhood, so to speak, Nina Turner made a statement recently that the Democratic Party emasculates Black men. Do you think that has something to do with it? And I'll go to you, Mark, and then I'm going to bring in Marcus.
I didn't necessarily. I don't know if I think the Democratic Party emasculates Black men. I don't know if that's how I would think about it. I think the Democratic Party just ignores Black people. I think they just disregard Black people more broadly. I think that and it's been said a couple times today, I think there's an expectation that we're going to be Democratic voters no matter what. And the moment that we're not Democratic voters, or the moment we even question being Democratic voters, we sort of get thrown away. I think the Hillary Clinton voting is an interesting thing. Again, I agree that it's too simplistic to say that it's just about gender. But you know, the Hillary Clinton versus Kamala Harris comparison is just so tough because we're comparing 2016 to 2024. We're comparing different economies. We're comparing people having lived through Trump. We're comparing all these factors. People having a familiarity with the Clintons. And then there's also the fact that don't nobody love white people more than Black people. And so there are people who will vote for a white person who doesn't represent their interests, but will question a Black person who's equally problematic and equally doesn't represent their interests. But they're going to give them the extra examination. So I wish, in other words, I wish we were more critical of Hillary Clinton. It's not that I wish more people voted for Kamala Harris. It's that I wish fewer people voted for Obama and fewer people voted for Hillary Clinton. Unfortunately, that often ain't the case.
That's an interesting point there. I want to bring in Marcus. Marcus, if you can just introduce yourself to everybody really quick. And I want to get your take on this as well, why Donald Trump gained support from Black men and Kamala Harris lost support from Black men.
First off, I want to say, can you hear me okay? First off, thank you for inviting myself and Chris, and pleasure to be here with the rest of the gentlemen. Apologies for being late. You guys know how LA traffic can be. But what I would say is I agree with all the points that I've heard so far. And what one thing about it is with each successive election that we've had, you've seen less and less of the Black population fall for the tricks of the Democratic Party. And I think that's a big part of it. From Obama sold us on a lot of things, which he did not do, and left us having to do a lot of defending Obama on the back half, even on certain times when we didn't agree with things. And I found myself, especially when I was in Florida, having to defend Obama because of racism. Not that I agree with his policies. And so from Obama fooling us, then people feeling like, well, you got to vote for Hillary. And then seeing more and more as more information has come out about what's happened with our foreign policy, Libya, all of these things, I think, have kind of mattered going up into this. And so they tried to run the same trick again. Oh, well, we got a woman and she's Black and this and that. And it's not enough. You got to actually come with something. And I think the electorate now, whether it is the Black population or just a lot of any people who lean more to the left in general, are wanting to actually see something and a plan versus the same old just come out and vote for us. And I think they weighed, especially growing up in a red state, they weighed on a lot of people, especially who vote Democratic, to vote harm reduction. Because in our states, a lot of times people will vote for the Democrats, even though they don't like them, even though they're not happy with them, because they know that the Republicans that they typically have that are elected typically are going to take away things and make life harder on you.
But why, and this is for you, Jamal, why is it that Black women still heavily showed up to support Kamala Harris and not me? Because I'm asking everybody, because I didn't support Kamala or Donald Trump. I voted for Jill Stein, but I want to know, why is it that Black men were willing to say, I'm not going to do this, but Black women overwhelmingly still came out to support her? She got 92% of the Black female vote.
No, that's a good question. I mean, Black females are the most loyal part of the Democratic Party, meaning they're wed to that base. And I got to be honest, you know, when Obama was running, I think there was this element of, hey, we have a Black person that's eligible, meaning he has a potential to actually win, in which case people were more wed to it. It was this kind of new element in the political space that we hadn't necessarily seen before. Whereas, you know, at the point where you already have somebody who's run in that race, but this might have been for Black women what it was for Blacks in general during that time frame. I mean, if you think back, when Hillary Clinton ran, you had, what, 30% of people who voted for Obama turned around and voted for Donald Trump in that race. And they don't necessarily engage that particular point, but that point is somewhat valid. But for women, this might have been their Obama moment from the standpoint of Blacks. And I hope that doesn't necessarily sound all that sexist or misogynist. But oftentimes the argument that I would hear, especially, you know, it's our turn. That was the rhetoric that Hillary Clinton used to use during her particular race. And there was a Hillary energy associated with the Kamala Harris campaign. I can't help but imagine that Black women see a Black woman, especially someone who cast themselves as a Black woman when she was running, wouldn't feel a little bit of magic associated with it, whether or not the candidate was great or not, or even in the way that she effectively ran the campaign, meaning whether it was an effective way to run a campaign or not. Look, I could be wrong. I don't necessarily have a great answer for that, short of they see somebody who they were represented by, or at the very least, who they saw themselves in, and they went for it. Black men, not so much.
Chris, what do you I watch all of you guys, by the way. I watch all of your shows, but I'm laughing when I come to Chris because I know Chris can be very blunt. Chris, what's your take on this?
Be gentle.
Look, you know, Sabby, this is your program. I will have, you know, and I have the utmost respect for you. I watch your program too, so I won't be out of pocket on your platform, right? However, one, we have to do something that we forget about at times. You have to follow the money. Where is the money funneled, right? If you're talking about institutions, colleges, universities, that's what I'm referencing by institutions. Just look at the numbers of graduates, look who it is, look who are running certain organizations. They are plugged in more so to Black women on that. The Democratic Party is plugged into Black women heavily on that side, right? Whereas there's not a whole lot of Black men who are in that space, if you will. There's some, but when you compare, for instance, I went to a graduation not too long ago. I was trying to keep count of the men, and I could keep count of the men at the college graduation I was at. So it was shocking, the overwhelming ratio. And I'm saying these women are going to be in certain positions, certain spaces, certain places where the men are not going to be. Just you know, this way this funnels you to, right? So it's easier for them to capture grandma, auntie. This is what they've been doing. It really doesn't take much thought, right? In certain countries, certain cities, counties where you may live, it's just, we vote Democrat, that's it. You don't think anything else. And then plus, unfortunately, you know, racism is a thing, even if it's fake racism, right? Just the lighting of the racism torch, if you will, always gets people saying. So you can always find Republicans to go on whatever medium it is, TV, radio, paper, internet, to say some of the most racist ever. And obviously that spreads throughout the culture. We all hear it. We all see it. And it's like, goddamn, the Democrats are trash. However, like, you talking reckless over here. So, you know, we always going to have a problem. And it's that's what always keeps a lot of the black women, if you will, locked into the Democratic Party. But for us, I say we stop being so emotional about it and we just totally separate from everybody. There's no need to even, there's no need to engage with the parties going for at all. And it's been that way for quite some time. Sorry, guys, for being long-winded.
Dion, what's your take on that? And I get where you're coming from, Chris, about higher ed. I'm going to get to that in just a second. But how do you feel about this, Dion? Why do you feel that black women still continue to show up for Kamala Harris and black men were like, nah? Or why do you feel some black men were willing to vote for Donald Trump this time around?
Okay, black women get a lot of support and resources from the Democratic Party, as we all know, across the board. And they've been elevated publicly as the leader and all supporters. And you have to understand, in politics is the reality versus perception. We're only 14% of the population. If 100% of us voted with the Electoral College, she still loses, point blank. And people have to see that reality. The next thing is, we as black men have done something culturally, which is we've broken the black wall of silence. Again, the perception, the great black vote, but it's not, wait a minute, Donald Trump is in the Bronx, New York City, getting support from black men. You know, the country's vote actually follows the influence of the perception of the great black vote, and sometimes they follow suit in other cultural aspects. The Latinos, well, that was ruined. Other people of color, the liberal progressives, were great, but then it's not like, well, if the black vote is fractured as it were, now it's okay for me to vote for a third party. Jill Stein, Robert F. Kennedy, he got screwed over, and that pissed off a lot of black people in my network here in New York with the anti-vaccine mandate stuff who supported him. And once again, comparison to the emasculation, what is the black man's role in the Democratic Party? The LGBT plus black man, the black man that just follows and worships the icon, the idol of black woman, or the black man in which is formerly incarcerated, rehabilitated, and I've come back to save the world. But what about the black man that did go to college, did do the right thing, that is educated, that's not in the barbershop? What about them? So the great black vote was too fractured publicly. We broke the stigma of the black wall of silence, and it made it actually cool to actually support Donald Trump and some other nuances therein. But our leadership skills and our support systems for the single perceived aggressive alpha black male, as it were, was totally destroyed.
Oh,
That is an interesting
if I could just Sabby real quick. I just wanted to add some real quick. Sorry, guys. Also, you have to add in the fact that a lot of black men have charges and can't vote, right? So you're also dealing with, you just have to remember, you're dealing with a population of people who may not even have access to the electoral system based on things they've done.
Well, I want to bring up this point, Mark, because Chris brought up the point about higher ed. And I noticed one of the things Kamala Harris mentioned was they were talking about at some point doing an HBCU tour, which her campaign staffers have come forward recently and said that that was cut out. I don't want to get into that whole story tonight. I already covered that. But they decided to pivot away from that. My question was, why HBCUs? Why not go to the public universities? Because the reality is a lot of people can't afford to attend a HBCU. I couldn't afford to go to a HBCU. I had to go to public universities. So it seems like almost as though the Democratic Party feels like Black people, the Black base is at the HBCUs, when there are a lot of us that are public universities. There are a lot of us that are not in college at all or have not gone to college, that are, just working straight out of high school. Why was that the focus, number one? And number two, to that point that Dion said about Black men not having a role in the Democratic Party, I want to get your take on that as well.
Well, a couple of things. I would push back just a little bit. I don't like the distinction between HBCUs and public institutions. Too often when we talk about HBCUs, we tend to think of the elite ones, the Howards, the Spelmans. There are 110 HBCUs in the country, and a lot of them are public institutions. When you talk about Dell State, Alabama State, Alcorn State, anything with state in it is a public institution. There are and those don't cost a lot of money. Dell State or Cheney cost as much, are cheaper than a lot of other public universities in the same state. For example, like Temple University is where I used to teach, costs a lot more than Cheney does, and Cheney's an HBCU and it's public, and it's where my father went. So just to be clear, so I don't want to make that distinction, because that tends to reinforce the elitism of those 6 HBCUs that everybody talks about at the expense of the other.
I was just gonna say, when I think of HBCUs, I think of Howard, Spelman, Morehouse. So,
and that's my point, and that's part of the problem. And so when you, but you should be, we should all be thinking about Alabama A&M. We should think about Alabama State. We should think about Albany State. We should think about Cheney. We should think about, because those are the ones that do the work every day of educating Black people. When you go to University of Arkansas Pine Bluff, Claflin University. I mean, I can go on, or actually Claflin is private, but even Coppin State in Baltimore. These are all important institutions. And I'm not nitpicking there. I'm saying that that campaign was across a bunch of HBCUs. I don't know enough about the campaign to know how many they went to, or if they just went to the elite ones. I don't know. I'm not defending the proposed tour. I'm just saying, for us as a community, let's celebrate HBCUs, but let's start dumping money into not just the 8 ones that produce, all the fancy people. Let's deal with the ones that actually produce everyday citizens, everyday community members, because those are the ones I think that do so much of the work. So I just wanted to put that out there. But I think the bigger question, the important question you asked is there a role for Black people in this party, or what is the role? There's a role, just like there's a role for Black people in the Republican Party. The question is it a healthy role? Is it a functional role? Is it a role that benefits us? Because we carry the water for Democrats as a community. We legitimize them. We make them seem like the non-racist party. So we know what our role is for them. The question to me more is there a role in the Black community for Democrats? And I would say no. I would say that the only way for Black people to advance, the only way for us to organize around in any kind of way that has a spirit of self-determination, any way for us to get beyond the binary system, is for us to ultimately leave the party. Now, I understand today there might be moves we have to be very thoughtful about it. For example, there might be a city council seat where the best person is a Democrat, or there's a city council seat where the best person is a Working Families or a Green or whatever, right? But in terms of a community, the Democratic Party can't be our home. It can't be what we look to. It can't be our default choice. We will never be okay as long as we do that. And so what we need, I think, is a mass exodus, because until there's a mass exodus, we're going to constantly be caught in these moments, which I admittedly was as well, in 2024, where you got 2 terrible candidates and you're trying to figure out how to navigate this thing. I ultimately voted Green, but I struggled with it, because I'm like, there's a terrible Republican candidate, there's this awful Democratic candidate, and I got to figure out what the best option is. Why is everybody laughing? Am I missing something?
You were excited about Kamala for a minute, Mark. You were.
No, I wasn't.
Get him, Sabby. Get him, Sabby.
Man, what was this?
Mark, remember we had this conversation. Remember when you said, well,
he was doing what Marcus said, harm reduction.
Remember you were saying voting was.
Hold on, there's a difference between harm reduction and being excited about it.
No. Mark, when it was first announced that Kamala was going to be the nominee, and you seemed to be, obviously happy it wasn't Joe Biden anymore, but I remember you saying that voting isn't going to stop the genocide. And I remember, Mark, come on.
I didn't say anything. Listen.
When Kamala was announced as the candidate instead of Joe Biden, you were
what did I say?
You were saying, well, what? Go watch your show. I watched your show, and you were like, well, it's not Joe Biden, and you were saying that, well, it's not Donald Trump. Do I think she's a perfect candidate? No, but it's not Donald Trump, because at one point, some of your viewers were like, I think he's pushing Kamala. At one point, you were excited.
Okay, so I can tell you that I was never excited about Kamala. I think there's a difference between saying I openly struggle and wrestle with the decision. I'm saying that. I'm not denying that. But I always said she was a bad candidate. I always said that this was a tough choice, but that if the ultimate outcome was better, if the net outcome was better, I don't use the language harm reduction, but I think that's close enough to what I was saying, that would be the choice. But I think it's a bit unfair to say that I was excited about it. Excited would suggest I was endorsing her or supporting her, whereas I was saying this might be the best choice possible. But I ultimately said that I wouldn't do that. I also very clearly said, and just to be clear, this was 3 months later. This wasn't when she was announced. When she was announced, I went on Democracy Now!, if you remember correctly. I mean, this is all Googleable, and was very clear saying that she's a neoliberal candidate, and this is the same exact thing as Joe Biden, right? And that ultimately they're going to have to make a case for whether or not, or the Democrats are going to have to make a case that she's better. Over time, it became very clear that she wasn't better, and then the question became again, if our choices lead to Trump, would we rather have Trump or would we rather have her? And just one more thing, and what I said was, I don't have issue with anybody who does not vote for her. I don't have an issue with anybody who, as a matter of conscience, can't vote for her, if for no other reason but the genocide in Gaza. But I also don't take issue with people who make a pragmatic choice to choose her. I don't dismiss people who made the Kamala choice as unethical. And that's the debate we were having. It was never, you should vote for Kamala. I've never done that. I'm 46 years old and I voted for one Democrat in my entire life. So this idea that I was excited about it seems a bit unfair.
Okay, maybe it's unfair to say excited, but when you tell people, in terms of harm reduction, well, which would be better, that kind of thing, that's the line that I hear from the Democrat. And I don't want to harp on you, Mark, but that is the
it's fine. I think people are so dogmatic about politics that they take any pushback as me taking the other extreme. Again, I never said people should vote for Kamala Harris. I've never said that. And in fact, if you can go through my YouTube and find me saying that people should vote for Kamala Harris, I'll give you $5,000.
Well, I wouldn't do that.
I'll donate to your channel. Just to make the point, I've never said that. What I said was quite clearly, I think, was I'm struggling with this choice. Here's why I'm struggling with this choice. I'm not, and as awful as Gaza is, I also, as an expert on Gaza, am not convinced that Trump won't be worse in Gaza. I still think Trump will be worse in Gaza. That was also what I said. Again, it was never a defense of Kamala Harris. It was saying she's bad, he's worse. What do you do when you have a candidate who's bad and worse? And I'm saying, I don't have an issue with people who make one choice or the other. Yeah.
I think there's a difference when you say who's bad, who's worse. I still think that's a big difference from saying what you just said now, which was that we need to leave the Democratic Party. We need to exit from that. There's a difference between telling people they need to exit and saying who's bad, who's worse.
But it's not different, because if you hear everything I just said, I said we need to do it so that we don't end up in the short term in situations like we were in 2024, where we're stuck between someone who's bad and someone who's worse. Again, until we make a mass exodus, we're going to keep repeating 2024. And that's not a contradiction. I'm saying, yes, until we leave the party, they're going to keep giving us mediocre candidates to go against awful racist candidates. And then we're always going to have to choose, and the Democrats always going to look better than the Republican. But we're still going to be stuck until we make the mass exodus. So yes, if we don't make a mass exodus in 2028, we're going to have the same problem. It's going to be Gavin Newsom against J.D. Vance or whoever, and we're going to be stuck with the same thing. And Newsom is going to look better than Vance. So until we leave, we're going to have to make these bad versus awful comparisons. You really see that as a contradiction?
I think there's for me, I tell people don't support either one of these parties. I don't tell them who's bad or who's worse, because what I found is when I say who's bad in the past, when I've said who's bad or who's worse, what they hear is, oh, okay, well, obviously one is less harmful than the other, so I might as well go in that direction. So I make it very clear to people that you shouldn't support either one. That's just the way that I do it. But
I don't agree with that. I just don't agree.
Well, and that's fine.
I don't do it that way because I don't have the same position you have.
And that's fine. But I do want to bring in Marcus as well about this. Marcus, what do you think should happen? So Mark Lamont Hill is saying that there should be a mass exodus. The question that comes up is, where do Black voters go? Where do you think Black men should go? What should Black men do? And what do Black men want? Because what I continue to hear over and over again, talking to people on the ground and not, just listening to people on like CNN and Fox News, but actually just talking to people on the ground, what I heard over and over again from Black men is that the Democratic Party is not meeting our needs. They're not running on issues that we actually care about. What's your take on that, Marcus?
There's a lot there. First, I do want to say I can kind of understand where Mark is coming from in a sense on some of those things because I felt like that in 2016 with Hillary Clinton. I understand feeling like you don't know. Now, I can't say what Mark has said on those. I do watch his channel. Of course, I can't watch every episode, but I do understand having to worry because when it comes down to real world consequences, sometimes you are going to be affected more by one candidate or the other. For instance, if Hezek gets in there and he wants to do some of the stuff with the veteran stuff, that is actually going to affect me. If he decides that he wants to take away veterans benefits, that is something that you might actually feel. And I look at the situation. Yes, a lot of people didn't want to vote for Kamala for Gaza, but what's going to happen with Trump, I believe, is going to be even more. It's going to be even worse. So you got to weigh it out. Each individual. What are your lines? What do you feel? And where do we go from there is the tough part, because I feel like in order to move on, you have to be prepared to deal with a certain amount of what you're willing to deal with, what you're willing to accept, because more than likely there might be some sacrifices that may need to be made, and let certain things go a certain way to build something else. I feel like the Green Party does do a lot of things which have a lot of policies which lean towards helping a lot of the Black community, Black men in particular. But I question how serious they are in their efforts, because it doesn't seem like I see a escalation on where they are from year to year. They seem like they're kind of stuck in the same place, and that's what I worry about. But I also, at the same time, I don't see any other movements outside of that are looking at trying to improve the Black community or help the Black community in any other way. You might have some of these other third-party candidates, which might talk overall and what we believe and rising tides lift all boats and all of that stuff. But when it comes down to it, there's not very many other parties out there outside of probably, say, the Green Party that's actually could be a actually viable choice. So I think another one of the biggest problems that we have, because I remember having this video, the Black community's abusive relationship with the Democratic Party. We have to get a better understanding of what the hell is going on, and we have too many people. And I'm just going ahead and rip the Band-Aid off and say it. We have to get a better literacy on what's going on politically and how these things affect us. There's so many Black people out there who voted for Trump because they think they're going to get another stimulus check. And that is a problem. We got a lot of people who need to understand what the hell is actually going on here. And that's one of the things that I feel like until we start getting a little smarter and understand how this game is played, we're going to keep on being boo-boo the fool.
I hear where you're coming from on that too as well. Jamal, where do in particular Black men, where do people go from here? I do echo what Marcus said about the Green Party. I think they are the closest to being the most viable because of the ballot access. But I do think there need to be some changes with the Green Party. I think there needs to be a rebrand. I think it needs to be led by different people. I think there needs to be, I would like to see more Black people in the Green. I'm not going to go through all that tonight, but there's a number of things that I think should be done. But I want to go to you, Jamal, as well. What do you think about all this? Like, where should, in particular, Black male voters go? And in your opinion, what do Black male voters actually want? Is the Democratic Party speaking to that?
I mean, I think more than anything else, I think Blacks need to get themselves out of this trap where you're always put into this position where there's this kind of expectation of pragmatism, of voting for whatever random Democrat they put up in comparison to whatever Republican that's running against them. And that means we need to stop just giving the vote away. I mean, look, Blacks voted at this election, I think it was like 75%, or 80%, give or take, if you add in both Black men and Black women into it. I think the number might have even been higher. If you go back to Joe Biden, it was even higher than that. If you go back to Hillary Clinton, it was even higher than that. When you're getting like 90% of a group, one demographic voting for a particular political party, they don't care. It's all for granted at that point. I mean, Kamala Harris ran around the country with Liz Cheney, going from pillar to post with this idea of trying to get moderate Republicans, ignoring her base and ignoring the people who effectively needed her, or she would have needed to win the race. If you look at the gap between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, I think there was like an 8 million vote difference, give or take, between the two. And so you had this kind of weird situation where people just stayed home. And I don't think Democrats realize this. When they like reflexively go with this blue no matter who stuff, they weaken the candidate. There should be standards associated with the candidate, even if it's for only this idea that the candidate has a much better chance of getting elected overall. If you ask me, where do I think blacks should go? Look, I honestly, I'm always confused by this question, because to me, black people like everyone else. Oftentimes, when Democrats talk about prison reform, missing the fact that black people need healthcare, education, college, all of that stuff, just like anybody else. Healthcare, these are things that we care about every bit as much as everybody else. And so, yeah, there are going to be elements of going with poverty directly and dealing with those issues. Agreed. I don't see that in a political party, though. I mean, the Green Party, yes, but, you know, oftentimes the Green Party, that vote is done in a somewhat of a perfunctory way as a protest, as opposed to this idea that, yes, Jill Stein is actually going to win this year. Or, yes, we want to get Jill Stein 5% so they can get funds or, you know, matching campaign donations. But where do they go? I think we first and foremost need to stop just randomly voting for whatever Democrat. I know, just to close it, I know when I was growing up, it was you just vote for any random Democrat. It wasn't even, hey, what are the policies of Democrat? Don't know, don't care. You keep the monsters at bay, and so you vote for Democrats in order to keep the Republicans out of office. That needs to change. Until it changes, nothing changes.
I agree 100%. I think, and for clarity, I am a Green Party member. I've been a Green Party member since 2000, and I have voted Green in every election except one in the last 26 years, not just at the presidential level, but every Green that's been on the ballot, I've voted for at every opportunity. And I think that, to Jamal's point, like there's a way that can just become a thing that we do as well without a political strategy. I have said this to my Green Party colleagues, my Green Party comrades. We have to do more than just show up every 4 years. Now, there are reasons why we're not on more ballots. It's not that the Green Party is lazy. It's that Democrats actively undermine the candidacy, ballot access, etc. It's ironic that a party that calls itself Democrats and focus on democracy is undermining people's access to a free and fair election. So that's a big part of it. But we also need to do better on city council seats. We need to do better getting mayoralties. We need to do better winning gubernatorial races and getting congressional seats. And even if that means caucusing with Democrats at the onset, we can also still be the voice of conscience. We don't have to vote with Democrats. We don't have to echo Democrats' voting patterns. We can stand on our own. That is the thing that I think we have to do. I think otherwise, again, people are always going to be in this situation where they're forced to choose between bad and worse. So let's do something different. But that also means I think we have to stop getting, and I say we, I mean, I'm speaking as a Green Party member, we have to stop getting celebrity candidates. We have to stop getting people who are not members of our party and bringing them in. I'm talking about as a long-term strategy. I understand why we do it now. I'm not throwing shade at anybody, but I'm just, and I was asked to run for VP in 2016, and I said no, because I thought there were better ways to organize, to use. I wanted to be on the ground organizing, and I organized for Jill Stein, and I was very publicly on CNN advocating for Jill Stein. And to me, there's work that needs to be done in those ways to build, to grow, that I think is more important than going after the presidential prize, even though that 5% is important. And I think that for me that's the long-term vision. Otherwise, we keep having our firing squads in a circle, and we keep saying you voted for this person, you voted for that person, when we're all desperate, we're all hungry, we're all dying, we're all trying to figure out how to win. And instead of pointing at the people that create this situation, we're pointing at each other. And I don't think that that's a long-term healthy or functional strategy. It's just my 2 cents. I have to run. I'm sure people in the chat will say, my Democratic plantation owners made me go back, but I'm dealing with a child care issue. So I have to manage that. I'm the only one here in the house. That doesn't have a flu. So I'll see y'all later. Thank y'all for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark.
Peace.
All right, so then I'm going to go to Chris as well. I want to get your take on this, Chris. What do you think that should be done? Again, like where should Mark mentioned? We talked about some of the things the Green Party definitely needs to work on. Also, Mark mentioned the idea of just not participating, like sitting it all out. Should that focus go into the community, like organizing locally, or does it even have to involve politics at all? What do you think?
Well, I have a bunch of thoughts on this, but I just wanted to say we haven't heard from Dion in a while, so I wanted him to be able to get his thoughts off, especially if we only have an hour. So.
Oh, sorry, Dion. I'm sorry you moved on me. Well, you didn't move on purpose.
I have a big brand or a podcast, so you can't really know about me. But I'm gonna say some things that might blow your head off your shoulder as well as your audience. I actually was a consultant for one of the Green Party candidates, Dr. Emmanuel Pastridge, who got pushed out because of the whole Cornwall West ordeal. The Greens in the Bronx was destroyed because of ballot access. I still get my homegirls, Gloria's Green Renaissance email, so I like to stay in the know. Why do I say that? I've also helped start the Bronx Libertarian Party. You have to know how civics works on a local level. In New York, what is ballot access? Cross-party endorsement, fusion voting. I'm a district in the Bronx Conservative Party. What I did was the third party line, went into the projects with my crew, explained to them a voter registration form, question 14. You don't have to be a Democrat. You could update your voter registration form. As a result of fusion voting, we actually pushed the first Republican in 40 years in the Bronx, New York to city council last year. Now think about it. The Bronx, believe it or not, we're the bluest county in America, 1.1 million Democrats. And we were able to do this. So we had a Max's Blexit, because I'm also with Blexit, out of the plantation and did his third party. Donald Trump, as a result of our efforts, came to the Bronx twice, and we made it cool to vote for Donald Trump in that aspect. So to answer your question specifically, that's one way to do it. Also, I was a consultant for American Values, Kennedy Super PAC, and we had all the angry Kennedy people when I was in court with these guys, and they knocked him off the ballot and eliminated his party line in New York, and people were upset, and we had to educate them on what ballot access means and how to get ballot access. So next year, when Uncle Eric is up for re-election here with matching funds for campaign finance and the pardon from Trump pending, we're going to hit the streets again and say, hey, we're a official third party. And if we swing either way, and you will respect us here in the poorest yet the most democratic county in America.
Oh. Hey, Dion, sorry, Sabby, I have a question for Dion. All right, I see you say you got Trump in them, in the BX. Okay, put that feather in your cap, right? What's up with your man Richie Torres? Why y'all still got him there? That's a horrible look for the Bronx.
Well,
that's beyond horrible. That's like used toilet paper bad horrible.
I can answer that question very briefly, Sabby, if I may, in which we are kept in pure ignorance here in the Bronx. They give us be a good minority politician in the Bronx, you got to give away the free toys, the free school supplies, the free turkeys, the free prom dresses. Nobody has the civic education element. What are bylaws?
That's not what Richie Torres is giving away.
Torres gets a lot of what? APAC money. And all the funding we want poured in the community and then knocking ballot candidates off the ballot. AOC is another character on the other side of our district who also gets a lot of slow progressive money. So if you're a small-time consultant or candidate pushing our candidates here on the third party line, we will get destroyed and squashed by that money. And then if you don't have the ambition, you're disillusioned, or the know-how from this process, you're going to be Democrats like, I can't run. And the same old okey doke keeps happening with the free goodies. You look like a superhero, whereas these people don't even vote here. So voting Black America is not really a superpower. If you have people in your community with all these, gentrification who don't vote here, it makes no sense. Your superpower is voting, but you don't have any real power in your community as a result. So I expose those things as more as, updating voter registrations and that.
Okay, I was just gonna say I have seen videos of AOC doing just what Dion was saying, giving out like the book bags and stuff like that. And we've done like the book bag giveaways and stuff here in Boston, but I'm not a politician. So it's like, it's like just helping just for the sake of helping and then doing it because you're running a race or that type of thing. And Chris, you're originally from New York. What do you think about the fact that New York in particular, I know a lot of these candidates had a difficult time getting on the ballot in New York. And to Dion's point, RFK was removed from the ballot in that particular state. I know New York City, for the most part, is pretty blue. But one of the things I did see is that some of the people who voted for AOC in her district also voted for Donald Trump. What do you make of that?
I'm gonna tell you, I'm from Queens, right? So I will say the word diversity means nothing. I grew up, I can't tell you a nationality I didn't come across, right? It'd be easier to name who I didn't see or meet or grow up around or with. With that being said, when you see what they've done to the city by allowing Texas and Florida and other states to send these bus loads of people to the city, you have immigrants in the city who have been there 3-4 decades now. Even they calling around saying, yo, it's too much. This is crazy. And to the extent that New York is blue, it is an extremely corrupt version of blue. People think Chicago is super corrupt in terms of their political operations, specifically as it pertains to the Democratic Party. New York is probably worse than Chicago, especially when it comes to the Democratic Party's machine. It's nasty work. I grew up watching it. It's nasty. I'm out of New York now. I'm in South Florida now, but all my people, all my family, everybody I know is still back up top. So I'm very much plugged in.
I want to add to that.
Would you say, Dion?
Yeah, I want to add to that very briefly, Sabby. The ballot is actually designed in a way to make the voters trick in order to vote Democrat. So, but the first choice is the president. But if you go down, the way they manipulate and put the judges above, the eye catches so straight down is Democrat. So it's easy to fool people with their perception of the ballot to just vote, straight down blue because there's no candidate on the Republican line. You see what I'm saying? So that manipulation is there. He's right with the corruption.
And then,
Chris,
the city council of New York, if you just go back over the last maybe 18, 19 months of statements that they've made, they're calling people xenophobic for not wanting all these people to be flooded into the city. It is crazy the response that they are giving. So I keep telling people, maybe it's maybe because you're not in certain places and spaces, maybe you don't feel affected and you're like, damn, well, it's not like that here. So I don't know. What I'm saying is the city is vastly different now. There's things in parts of the city that you ain't see. There's a lot of dark shit happening outside on the streets that people don't really understand. And it's making the residents who've been there for several decades be like, yo, what the hell is going on? Which is why you saw people saying, you know what? Not only am I not afraid of Trump no more, I'm going to go vote for him. If you're going to get some of this shit out of here, part of my language, then I'm okay with that. And that was something that people did not take into account. They just looked at that as some partisan shit as opposed to some real life shit. Because you can sit from home wherever you live and look at things on the internet, but until you actually outside, smelling the grime in the air, the dirt in the air, you can have a different perception. And that's the problem. A lot of people's perception is so screwed up, which is why it's not even worth listening to a lot of people.
The migrants were the red pill to Black America. The migrants were the red pill to Black America.
100%.
Was this a big, and I'll go to you, Jamal. I've heard from people from Chicago, people in New York, and then also we still do have this situation here in Boston, Massachusetts as well, where the governor and the mayor of Boston are just at a loss for words. The last message they sent to people in Boston was actually Eastern Massachusetts said, please be willing to open up your homes to let people to come in because there's nothing left. All the shelters, I'm dead serious. It's all the shelters are full. And they're like, we have nothing. And they have reached out they've been very vocal about this, at least that they've reached out to the Biden-Harris administration, asking for help, asking for resources and support. And they also said they received no response. Jamal, do you think this was also a big factor in particular for some Black voters, maybe in those particular areas?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, immigrants are red pill anywhere in the world, and including the Black community. And look, whatever people want to think about Republicans busing migrants to New York or busing migrants to the other blue cities or blue states, they accomplished their objective. I mean, the reality of it is those states that are on the borders have to pay more in order to deal with the migrant issue. And the moment that those migrants started getting bused in Chicago and to New York, then all of these libs, African Americans also, especially in the poorer communities, were just as outraged as many of those, hardcore right-wing Republicans that they always cast as being racist for caring about the immigration issue. When Mayor Adams went basically complaining to Joe Biden, effectively saying, dude, we're spending $1 billion in order to deal with this issue. We need some assistance on this. We need you to, fix this issue. We need you to handle the border. Yeah, that's an issue. I mean, if you think of the number of images that you were seeing with all of the migrants coming into the country, waves and waves, and then Joe Biden taking one policy after the next that was either ineffective, quasi-legal, that wasn't necessarily doing anything with the issue. And for the longest time, he said, well, I have no power over this issue. And then a few months before the election, okay, now I'll shut the border, showing that he actually could have did something right off the bat. Joe Biden took policy explicitly in repudiation of what Donald Trump was doing when Donald Trump was in office. Everything Trump did was bad. And so when the immigration thing came up, he started pulling back some of the policies that Trump went along with. And yeah, it damaged her. I mean, because the reality of it is the border czar, what they didn't necessarily want to own up to, or, they tried to act as if she wasn't the border czar. Okay, well, that looks bad if you have all of these people at the border and she's supposed to be the border czar. And then the last month into the election goes to the border, something that I think she might have done once the entirety of the administration, as if she's going to get some kind of credibility on what she, by definition, going to the border, acknowledged experientially was an issue. And so, yeah, if you're talking about those communities that looked at the immigration as an issue, and you could see it all over in Chicago, New York, many of those blue cities, they were complaining completely and significantly. And yeah, they took it out on the Harris administration. I mean, if you look at the polls, for example, those same exit polls, and they ask the question, who's better on the issue of immigration? Donald Trump comes up in spades. And look, this is Trump saying stuff that was racist, bigoted. He hit that hammer of the immigration stuff. I thought he hit it far too hard, but the public looked at him as being better on that issue. Agreed.
Interesting. I want to go to Marcus. What's your take on this? I mean, I have to say I was kind of surprised when Governor Abbott started to send buses up this way and Ron DeSantis. And I said, damn, they really weren't joking around. Like, they weren't joking around when he said, okay, you guys want to be sanctuary cities? Fine, we'll send them to you. They were not playing around. What's your take on this, Marcus?
I think it's interesting. I wanted to say real quick, when they talk about the corruption in Chicago and New York, LA and California, the corruption is just as bad here, if not worse. They literally write every ballot initiative so you don't know what the hell's going on. So when people are like, well, y'all voted down minimum wage, it's because of how they write this. They make it so you don't know what the hell it is. And you have like 50 things on there. So, but that's a whole nother issue. Honestly, the Black community, to a degree, some of them really, immigration did become an issue for some. But I honestly, where I noticed it more than anything, in the Hispanic community, there was a lot more people out here in the Hispanic community who were like, no, this is getting out of control. We need to get a handle on this and get some of these people out of here. And so I heard it far more Hispanic people, especially just people who I deal with, who they were like, no, this is a problem. Now, from my perspective out here in California, it's just too many damn people any damn way. So it's hard to tell if it's immigrants, if it's just people come from other states or whatever. It's too many damn people. And I'm happy to send bus tickets to send people to Wyoming and Utah and wherever the hell they need to go. That's what I would be doing. But yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I notice is the immigration thing definitely played a part, especially in the Hispanic community. And even in a lot of the immigrant African communities, the Nigerian community, Eritreans, Ethiopians, a lot of African immigrants I heard out here, immigration was a top issue. But out here, a lot of just the corruption in the system, it goes along with that same, issue of the immigration, because everybody feels like the system is completely corrupted. Everybody feels like none of the issues that they want on the ballot are getting addressed, no matter who it is. And so most of the stuff end up coming into like salt tax and things like that. And so you have to be over a certain amount to start being okay. And then the homelessness issue in California, you have a lot of legal citizens and not, I mean, you have a lot of people who are just homeless, living in vehicles. The encampments are just ridiculous. And so you have so many different other things that I see going on that people are complaining about, that it's hard to pinpoint and look at immigration because there's just so much going on.
All right. Well, we're just about at an hour. Before we end the panel, I do want everyone to go around and let everybody know where they can find you, or if you're not doing a podcast, like, what you're up to in the community. Let's go to Jamal.
Jamal Thomas. I have a YouTube channel by the same name, Jamal Thomas. I do a morning show Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. We do news, politics, domestic, international. I call it Best Damn Morning Show. Covering those topics. So definitely check me out. And
he is up early in the morning, because I know what I like. Sometimes I'll listen to like a YouTube show, like I turn on YouTube in the morning, like if I'm getting ready to whatever, and I'm like, damn, Jamal's already been live for an hour. It's 8 o'clock in the morning.
Well, the radio show used to be from 7 to 10. And at that point, I just got accustomed to doing 7 to 10. I just stayed with the same policy.
All right, Chris.
Oh no, I'll let Marcus speak for us. Go ahead, Marcus. You do you're the captain of this shit.
Well, I mean, I look at it as we're more of a partnership. It's like two brothers. Not necessarily there's no I'm the hero and the sidekick, none of that stuff. It's just two alphas teaming up, and that's how we doing it. And I always think Jamal always talk about, when real men can't sleep, real men do the news. So definitely a big fan. I've been listening to Jamal for a long time, but you can find us at the Political Matrix. We're over there Saturday nights. You can find me on Twitter or X or whatever at the Political Matrix or Marcus Young Morpheus Cage. It's not hard to find us, and we're very approachable. And so if you guys got information, stories, or whatever, you're like, hey, what do y'all think about this? We love to get all this extra input. And I listen to just like and also appreciation for Sabby for putting this panel together, because I'm so appreciative to be able to be here with these fine gentlemen, and it's an honor. First time meeting Dion, and hopefully I'd like to collab with him, and definitely Jamal. I've been listening to for so long. It's really cool to actually hear that brilliant brain speaking. So appreciation, and shout out to Sabby's chat. Make sure you're giving the thumbs up, like, and support all these wonderful shows.
Sabby, my opinions could get wildly crazy, so I just want to say, I'm glad you invited us. Thank you. I was on my best behavior today, I promise you. I even put on a collar shirt for you today. I mean, I was coming from work, I ain't gonna lie, but I'm just saying, thank you for the invite. Fellas, it was good to meet y'all. I'll definitely be looking into your programs as well, but I appreciate you guys being here.
And I just want Dion, also, where can people find you? What are you up to?
Well, I try to answer your question succinctly. I am excited to be here. You can just email me here and find out. I'm doing two things to answer your question. Number one, as a district leader here in the Bronx, I'm educating my community to go to TrumpVanceTransition.com on the Serve America and apply for the over 80,000 positions. A lot of black people, well, you missed out on your 80,000 positions. Get the plum data report and look in there and see what they are, how much they paid. Number two, next year as a consultant, we have our municipal races with Eric Adams on down. I'm trying to consult clients. I have one. If you want to run for office, come see me and just email me here, or how it works, the matching funds program, what's going on politically. I'm Dion Powell again, and bam.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Oh, Sabby, can I say one more thing? Oh yeah, we're gonna be out in the DC area for the inauguration. Me and Chris are gonna do some street interviews and all that. So if you're in the DC area, hopefully we can meet up with y'all. Love to see a lot of the faces. Maybe kick back a couple of drinks with y'all. So that's all I wanted to say. I love to meet.
Sabby, that was good work.
Have conversation. So.
And Sabby, that was excellent work what you did, you know, as it relates to Mark, at least, you know, keeping him, you know, keeping it a buck, you know, because he really was, you know, that's why my facial expressions were changing so often. I was trying to, you know, maintain, because I've seen him on not just only his, you know, platform, I've seen him on multiple platforms, and he was going very, very, very hard for the lady. And even if he wasn't a fan, he was going hard for her, and he was disparaging towards anybody who voiced an opinion to the otherwise. But I like the way you did it. You did it with class, as you always do, and your smile gave it away. You know, you said 1,000 words with your smile, so that was excellent work.
Is it possible that he was conflicted with the choice, like he said?
No,
Because, for example, I saw it. Like, to be fair, I didn't see it, right? So I'm going by the way it's being explained. I mean, from his point of view, or at the very least the way it sounds, he was conflicted by the choice that, you know, depending upon the things that he cared about, he thought to himself, okay, the Democratic Party is a problem. Oh, this is a horrible candidate, but Donald Trump is a wild. Like, if that was the way he was thinking about it. For example, he had a debate with Sam Cedar on the issue of third parties. Effectively, Sam Cedar is against everybody. He's the Democratic Party adjacent. And I remember the conversation that Mark had with him, effectively defending the Green Party vote and defending people who weren't necessarily voting for Kamala Harris. That's what I'm asking. Are you sure he wasn't just so nuanced in the context of other people who are far more in the camp of, screw it, you shouldn't vote for the Democratic Party? And that difference, or that subjectivity, is what is being debated. Well, I'm asking. I don't know.
Sabrina, get your $5,000. It's not too late.
That wasn't that. It wasn't the way that I took it. But he's not here to defend himself. So I think we can keep it at that.
Well, he made his point, right? He just made his point. And I guess my thing was, if it was nuance, but fair enough. Like you said, he's not here. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just, you know. It's kind of, but thank you guys so much for coming on, and talk to you guys later.
You guys have a good one. Thank you for this.
Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.